So have a look at this position. It's white to play. And the first thing I looked at when I looked at this position is, can I play bishop d2? Can I trap the queen in this position? Because the queen's a bit short of squares, thanks to this bishop. And we've got the rook and we've got the queen. So I thought, is this a queen trap position? Bishop d2 hits the queen. What can the queen do? Queen can either take the pawn, right, or can come to like e5. So queen has got limited options. So the first thing I did is I looked at this move, takes, and then I looked at what about just takes a b pawn. Not sure about that. And then I looked at queen e5, possibly f4, but this just takes en passant. So I thought, it's not a queen trap position. That's the first thing that sprung to my mind. It's not true. So then I thought, what about this idea then? We've got knight, we've got a queen, possibly mate threat. I quickly dismissed this because, you know, the knight just falls. So that doesn't really work. And then I thought, what about, can I not try and combine the two? Can I not maybe play b4 and deflect the queen, perhaps, and then try and play for the knight threat? But the mate threat, but that wasn't going to work either because bishop's just going to take anyway. So, you know, after queen takes a pawn or moves to e5. So then I thought, all right, so let's look at this pawn then. Advance past pawn. There will be a pattern around this, and I immediately saw the move knight takes, king takes, and then rook check coming into c7, and then this would be curtains. Once this pawn's gone, the king's with check retreats back to this square. The queen can then come in to like g4 was the first thing that I looked at, and possibly also b3 check. So that's what I found. I found the solution on Lee Chess. It took about 3 or 4 minutes, but what was happening when I looked at the position is the patterns were immediately jumping out. So the queen trap pattern was jumping out, right, and then this pattern was jumping out with the queen on this square, and then after those, so I dismissed those. This pattern jumped out. A rook on the 7th is always obvious, completely a good move, with a pawn supporting, covering these squares. So I found the solution to the problem. Let's just put that on the board. Knight takes, king takes, rook kicks, check, and actually the solution stopped at that position. But I'd sort of seen this move as well, and then I just knew that there had to be a tactic in this position with a rook on the 7th rank. And, you know, I did look at this move. And I thought, well, first thing I looked at is probably this check, but obviously it's covered by the queen. But then I saw this move. But I didn't need to see that far. But anyway, all this has got a point. So my point is I solved that through, firstly, pattern recognition, the patterns jumping out. And then what I had to do is sort of like check whether the patterns worked through little calculations. So it's pattern recognition first, and then calculations just checking if this sort of worked. So my point is, like I've made clear in the other videos, pattern recognition is the number one thing that you need to be doing, that I need to be doing, that everybody needs to be doing if they want to improve at chess, right? Pattern recognition, pattern recognition. So the main question is, and the most important chess question that's never asked, and I did that video, is how do you increase your store of pattern recognition in the most effective way possible? That's got to be the most important question that's never asked. So in this video, I talked about pattern recognition and calculation training and my methods and my recommendations. It's a little bit long-winded in hindsight, but in that video, I recommended 80% pattern recognition training, maybe even 90%, and 10% for longer, harder calculation exercises. But what about something completely different? What about something completely radical? There are thousands and thousands of adult chess improvers who do not improve, who stay at the same level year and year and year after year, and they don't make any progress whatsoever, or only minimal progress despite working hard. Why is that? Why is that? Because maybe the methods are not right. We have to do something different. If things aren't working, you need to do something different. So maybe this is the solution, and the solution is the solution. So this is an idea that I've had for a number of different years. I've discussed it with friends. I discussed it with Luke McShane when I spoke to Luke McShane on a train for a while. And I discussed it with other people. I've never trained in this manner, but it's something that I've been interested in. I'm not totally sold on whether it will work. This is why I'm doing this video. I'm putting it out there. Now, like, does this work? Does this look good? Right, I'm going to show you what the method is, and then I'm going to discuss it. So now let's go. So this is quite a common pattern that crops up quite a lot. Whenever white's played h3 or black's played h6, the other way around, you've got a knight that can just take the pawn like this. Right, and it's a free pawn, because if we take, we can win the knight that's on f3. So that's a really nice idea. Let's look at that one again. Okay, next one. This position, we've got a queen infiltrating. We want to play the rook into the 7th rank like in the previous pattern, the previous position at the start of this video. But the problem with that, we've got a back rank checkmate. So first, the idea is to take the rook and then get the rook on the 7th rank where mate is inevitable. This position, the pattern that jumps out immediately is this. So can we get out onto this square? So we could take here, but that's covered by the bishop and the knight. So what about knight f5? And then if black tries to cover that square, knight h4, trapping the queen. So 3 useful patterns there, I think. And the point is, we spent about 20 seconds per position, right? We did all 3 of those in about a minute. So if you put that into a training session for 30 minutes, you would see about 90 positions in 30 minutes using the solution training method. If you was doing regular tactics training, you were spending 3 to 5 minutes per position, you'd do about 7. So 7 positions versus 90. So remember, what I'm trying to do here is increase pattern recognition, right? And I'm trying to do that by getting those patterns into my head, which is a little bit thick. So I need lots of stuff going in there as quick as possible. At the end of the video, I will be setting you a little test to see if that sort of worked. But obviously, that is my idea in a nutshell, really, is rather than spending a lot of time over the patterns and positions, is just look at the solution immediately. Look at the solution, flick, 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 get the patterns in your head. And obviously, you're going to have to use space repetition to come back to those positions time and time again. But if you visit those positions really quickly, and then you can go through on a second pass really quickly, and a third and a fourth, and a 10th pass, the positions and the patterns will just spring out immediately. Hopefully, that's a general idea anyway. So there are some pros and cons about this, which came up in my discussions, and the pros and cons are this. The pros, obviously, is we can massively increase the amount of material that you're looking at. Right, that's a definite plus. You're training with more and more patterns, and if you're doing that quickly, you can hopefully then boost the amount of patterns that you can store. And remember, these don't have to be tactical patterns. They can be positional ones, they can be opening ones, endgame ones, prophylactic ones as well. I'm not just talking tactics, but tactics probably works best overall because there's a clear, positions, a clear pattern. You can clearly see that's trapping the queen, for example, or that's winning a pawn. Whereas strategic stuff is a little bit longer. So the pros are, this could increase the amount of patterns you get in your head. The cons and the negatives, which came up in discussion, is that probably you've not got that initial try with the position. This was something that Luke McShane and some friends said that was wrong with this method, is the fact that you've not got that initial struggle. Right, so you're not really thinking, you're not engaging the sort of the brain muscles in looking at the position and trying to think for it. So that's the con. Overall, then, I don't know whether this works. I've never tried this method before. The nearest thing I've come to it is using Chessable space repetition, my common chess patterns, and going over the positions pretty quickly, using the space repetition algorithm on there. And I've always said to people, if they struggle with the positions, and I put this in common chess patterns too, as a recommended method of study, if you struggle, just look at the solution. It doesn't matter, it's not cheating. Right, burn the patterns in your head. But what I'm trying to discuss with this one, and I'm interested in what people think, is, do you think this is a good method? Do you think solution training, looking at lots of different tactical patterns very, very quickly, is a good idea? Solution first, right? Solution and position first, or at the same time. So this would be in a book. If this was in a book, for example, it'd be, here is the position, here is the solution, here is the position, here is the solution. Or really, here is the solution and position together at the same time. Just get it in your head, it doesn't matter. So another way to look at this is that, if you was a teacher of any subject, right, and you have a student, would you give them an exam immediately, or would you teach the content first? Right? Because when we sit down, we play a game of chess, it's a test. Right? It's a test of what you know. It's a test of how many patterns have you got in your head already. And there are other things, the other factors as well to consider, like the calculations and stuff like that. But it basically comes down to how much material have you got in your head. That's the test. But when we're studying, the objective of studying should be to put as much material into your head as possible. So this is where solution training comes in. This is where my idea for it came in a number of years ago. And as I said, I've not actually trained with it yet, but I am interested in this, and I'm putting it out there to see what people think. So let's look at the test. Okay then, so what would you play in this position? Well, knight take h3, because you've already seen the solution. But that's my point. So let me know what you think about this method of training. Do you think it is something that would be useful? Do you think it's something that would work? Are there any problems with it that I've not seen? Are there any things that, any points I've not really thought about? Don't forget to subscribe, and thank you and take care.